Now, one person knows a thing or two about the Liberal Party and the problems it faces, especially around pre-selection, is Katherine Deves, who ran for Warringah in May against Zali Steggall and faced nearly as much opposition from within her party as she did outside of it. Katherine, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on Inside the News. And I want to ask you, first off, what were your reactions to the report, or the reports of the report that we've seen out there, and what went wrong for the Liberals?
Well, I think that what we saw reported on in the news, there's not going to be any surprises there. I think what we're facing here in this country is not only a bit of a political realignment, but a generational realignment. So the Liberal Party really needs to come to grips with that.
And so one idea that I've seen circulated, and you've spent some time in the US, as of course have I, was floated by Dom Perrottet. I think this is a really interesting idea, to have a US-style primary system for candidates, which would do a couple of things. Number one, of course, vets people out there in the public eye, but also gives people who are voting for them more sense of buy-in. What's your reaction to Dom Perrottet's idea there?
Look, if he's talking about open primaries, I think it's a terrible idea, because just anybody can rock up, whoever's got the most money, the most name recognition. We look at someone like John Fetterman, which was just laughable. So I think that if we're going to be selecting candidates, it needs to be within the party, but they need to be candidates who have had an opportunity to be established within the community. There needs to be a proper timeline. You simply cannot have a last-minute captain's pick. I mean, Exhibit A, it doesn't work. And then the people who are going to be running the campaign, like the members on the ground, you need to have their support. We've got to have plebiscites. If we can't even figure out plebiscites, how can we do primaries?
Exactly right. And on that subject of generational change, you mentioned that a moment ago. I mean, I talk about housing, I talk about education, but what do you think the Liberal Party needs to do to have a convincing message to younger voters that they're not just, a bunch of aging boomers or old fuddy-duddies, and that they actually, are relevant to the modern world they live in?
I think we need to go back to first principles. The belief statement used to be read at every single Liberal Party meeting. I think that maybe they should get back to that. But that belief system is absolutely relevant to today. And I think that if all our policies are based on that, we can have discipline in messaging, we can have all our policies flowing from that belief system, we can sell that message. It should be relevant to the young people of today. Yeah,
and yet you've got this situation where, you'll have a moderate wing that's going to be pushing for, greener policies and things like that. And, you've got conservative members say, well, if you go down that way, we're going to go to a minor party. How do you pull the whole ship together, do you think?
Well, if we're talking about, we talk about preservation of the environment within that belief system. So that should be, I don't think that covering the landscape with solar panels and wind turbines is preserving their environment. I agree with you with what you said previously about nuclear. So I think that in terms of attracting women and attracting the young people of the day, we just need to make sure that we have disciplined messaging. We need to know what we stand for, who we stand for, and what we want to achieve. And we just didn't prosecute that at the last election.
So how then, if you had one message for the people who are running the Liberal Party now, for Peter Dutton and everybody in Party HQ, how do they go forward? What's the Katherine Deves program?
I think we need to remind ourselves what we stand for, who we represent, and what we want to achieve. And we need to tie it back to those first principles. Because, it goes from everything from freedom of speech, belief, association, things like that, which are very much, under threat today, freedom of speech. But I don't know if that's being prosecuted out there to the young people.
And, is there a lesson to be learned then, from some of these candidates in the US and, politicians like Ron DeSantis in Florida, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, who take that fight up to the media, know what they believe in, and don't shy away and say, oh, they're going to monster us on the ABC or whatever, and actually go forward from that principle?
Well, they're conviction politicians, aren't they? So people know what they stand for. And when you see someone who's able to withstand the heat, withstand the stupid Twitter pylons, you might not necessarily agree with everything they say, but you go, I know what they're standing for. And I agree with that.
Well, Katherine, if there's anybody who knows about stupid Twitter pylons and has been on the receiving end of far too many of them, it's you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Inside the News, and for your great, unique insights into the Liberal Party. Thank you so much, Katherine Deves.
Thank you, James.